to Season 5 of the Hey Girl podcast with your host and my mom, Bethany Needham. This season, we get to hear from some incredible new guests, and we're bringing back some of our faves. Each guest will share their story of running their race in their place, and we hope they inspire you to do the same. If you want more information or to connect with my mom, go follow our new Instagram at HeyGirlGram, friend us on Facebook at HeyGirlPod, or even better, join our brand new Patreon to get bonus materials, hang with my mom, and you get to help Hey Girl continue to grow and reach more people. That's pretty cool. All right, time to grab that seltzer and maybe a tissue box just in case. Here's my mom.
Hey girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Hey Girl podcast. In this week's episode, you get to meet my new friend, Kayla Hess. I was so excited to sit down and hear her story, and let me tell you, the things that she has experienced and parts of her stories are absolutely incredible. There were moments I literally had goosebumps. You are going to love this episode. But before we get to it, really quick, y'all, my Hey Girl team has been rocking at all of the things, from some fun Instagram giveaways to just different, activities, competitions, whatever you want to call them on the socials, and even finding different links and products of things that we love that you can find on our website, bethanyneedham.com, and get discounts and different things on some amazing things, especially going into the holiday season, that you will love. I promise you. So do me a favor. Send some love to my team. Head on over. If you're not already following Hey Girl Graham, go find us on Instagram. There's some fun stuff happening there. You can find us on Facebook too, Hey Girl Pod, or again, almost everything that you need, you can find through our website. So bethanyneedham.com. I want to encourage you to check it out. You can join our Patreon through there. You can find these great products through there. You can find more podcast episodes, literally all of the things. And I'll be honest, this has been a crazy season for me. And I just wanted to pause and just say how incredibly grateful I am for the team that God has built for this podcast and how encouraging they have been and supportive. And man, I just love them. I love this community. I love Hey Girl. I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And so this week, as we prepare to hear from Kayla Hess, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, go ahead, leave a review for the podcast. Let us know, what is God teaching you, speaking to you? How is He encouraging you through these stories? But also take time to share it. Tag us, let us know. We would love to thank you. And we just love hearing from you. So thank you for those of you who are listening. Seriously, you're going to love it. I cannot wait to introduce you. So without further ado, meet my new friend, Kayla Hess. All right, listeners, I am so excited. Kayla, I have only known you for all of 12 minutes, and already I feel like, yes, it's been a really special time.
Already.
So Kayla Hess, this is the first time for us to have you on Hey Girl. You came highly recommended by a dear friend that I trust everything she tells me, mostly, almost all the time.
Oh, wow. Yes. Mostly. Yes.
Yes.
Of course. Gotta put that stipulation in there. Yeah.
So honestly, I'm excited, and I mentioned this to you off air. Is that like a term? We're going to use that because it sounds fancy.
Totally.
Off air is that I feel like I get to be one of the listeners today because I haven't heard your story prior to this. So that's so fun for me. I'm getting to experience like the real Hey Girl experience. So I hope that I represent listeners well in the questions that I ask. Well, we'll start from the beginning. Kayla, why don't you just take some time and introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, too. Do you have a phone voice when you do these interviews? Like, do you have like a podcast voice? Because me and my sister get on each other all the time, and we're like, don't do the phone voice. Like, hi, how are you? So I'm going to try to talk real normal for, to make people feel like they're here, not do the fake whatever voice it is. So
now I'm super insecure about how I did it. I'm just kidding.
I literally just felt myself doing it though. All right. So
well, hello, Kayla.
well,
Why
hello.
don't you take
Hello.
some
And
time
maybe
to...
if I lower it an octave, Anyway.
Perfect.
So yeah, my name is Kayla. I am currently a nurse living outside Dallas, Texas, but it's been a little bit of a journey to get here. Bethany and I were just talking. I'm a New Englander in my roots. I grew up in New England. I'm from New Hampshire. So Hey Girl and the whole Hey Girl team are right. Yeah, I was homeschooled, grew up in a Christian household, and then went to a private Christian school where my mom was my teacher for 3 out of 4 years of high school. And so it felt like I was still being homeschooled, even though I was in a classroom. I knew I wanted to be a nurse ever since I was like a freshman in high school. And so nursing has been a big part of my life, and it's afforded me lots of opportunities. And the first one being getting to go to a great college in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, University of Pittsburgh, and I'm there for about 4 years after graduation as a nurse. For anyone who is a nurse that might be listening, they know just all of sort of, I'm going to use the word trauma, I think, associated with nursing school, maybe just college in general. Maybe every college student feels that way, of like leaving, if you're leaving home for the first time or whatever. But yeah, graduated and worked as a nurse. I always knew, I had heard about mercy ships in high school. For anyone that's not familiar, it's a hospital ship. They renovate this old ship and turn it into a hospital that floats around the continent of Africa, and they give free medical care. And so I knew that I wanted to do that, and I had the chance to go be on the ship in Madagascar after I was a nurse for about 2 or 3 years. Got to go on the ship. I was on the ship for 8 months in Madagascar, and absolutely loved it. That was phenomenal, a great experience. And then I came home for a period of time. And by home, I mean New Hampshire again. I actually moved back in with my mom and dad after my time on the ship ended. And I was home just for a couple months before my father passed away unexpectedly. I was glad that I was home when it happened. I was able to then live with my mom for a few years afterwards while we just sort of adjusted to our new normal. And I have 2 older sisters, and they are both married. So obviously everyone, came together, but life happens, and they're not, my sister is the one that lives down in Texas. So people are sort of scattered. So being able to be home with my mom is a thing, I think, for both of us. But then the Lord put the Middle East on my heart, and I had a dream that I was going to go to Syria. I went to Syria. I actually had the dream not too long after I got home from mercy ships. And I was just looking after my father passed, for the years that I was home, I was looking at opportunities to go to the Middle East. And obviously it can be a little tricky to get over there. And that was very much like at the height of the civil war in Syria. And so it was a very closed, you're not just waltzing in. So I was like, I don't know how that's going to work, but the Lord made it happen, as he does. And so I got to go and be a nurse in Syria for 5 months before we had to evacuate. And then I moved back home, back to the States. And my sister down in Texas was like, hey, you're single and unattached, and we miss living around family. So you should probably come move to Texas. And I was like, well, sure, why not? I could use a change of scenery. Yeah, I talk a lot about nursing because it has afforded me some really incredible opportunities in my life. Well, I mean, that we can get into this later, I guess, or dive right in now, but I actually just quit my nursing job this past weekend. And now I am working at a candle shop, which
What?
is it's like, no, it's the way that the Lord has sort of, I was feeling burnt out and I applied and they hired me, and I'll just say it has been a wild ride the last couple weeks, but it's been awesome. And a little plug for these candles. They're amazing candles. I don't, is that like, am I allowed to like market for these candles right now?
Absolutely. I mean, as long as you mail me one. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well, for sure. Yeah, that was already a given. That was already a given.
What are the candles?
So they're these awesome soy candles. It's called Calyan Wax Co. Calyan. They are phenomenal. They smell really great and they last. They burn really cleanly. I feel like I'm doing a commercial right now, but I'm leaning into it. And then the last thing is, and this is honestly what made me want to go work for the company. I sort of knew the guys that started it, and they give 5% of their total revenue back to trafficking. We have a partner with this organization called Traffic 911 that does some really cool work here in the DFW area. Yeah, I honestly, it was the weirdest thing. I sent in like my nursing resume to get this job, and I was like, this has nothing to do with candles. I'm not getting this job. And I got it. And now I'm working there. And so much of my intro was about nursing. And then I'm like, and I quit.
Okay, so here's what I like about this, and then we'll go back because I would love to hear some more about a couple of things you mentioned, but
Yeah,
we talk all the time on Hey Girl about run your race in your place, right? Like that's kind of our slogan. And something that I have learned a lot about, especially in recent years, is the difference between a calling and an assignment. And I think, so I'll describe it like this. Like, I truly believe that as Christians, we all have the same calling on our lives. When we come to know Jesus, that we're to know him, like that relationship part, to know him and then to make him known. I feel like if I boiled it down, it's the simplest way I could say it, like to know God and to make him known. But oftentimes we confuse the assignments God gives us to thinking that that's our calling. And what can happen is we feel like, well, nursing is what I'm called to. I'm just using as an example. And then God calls you to do something else. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense because I've been doing nursing. And so often in life, like that's how God works. Like there's this assignment for a season and then a new assignment. And oftentimes, like, I always joke that, wow, that seemed to come out of left field. And then I was like, I think God like lives in left field. I think he loves to just like, you think it's going this way. And then he comes this way. And
he loves the curveball.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I think it's just so much more clearly him when we could not have mapped that out the way that it played out.
100%. Yeah.
That being said, that was total soapbox to say. I love that is so clearly indicated in your story. Like, you know what? I had this assignment. Now, this is where I'm going to go back to. I want to know mercy ships.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, I'm just trying to wrap my brain around what that life looked like.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I honestly, crazy in the best way, but like, I done missions trips before, and you try not to go into things like that with expectations, but also how can you not have expectations about what your life is going to look like for 8 months?
Right.
But it blew all of them out of the water. I absolutely loved it. You're living on a ship and it's a crew of about 450 people from literally more than 40 different countries. So some of the people who you're living with, like the majority of them, maybe English isn't their first language, which it is a weird thing to point out right away because obviously, but like you just are walking around and there's so much that you're not used to. And it's so beautiful because you're just experiencing all of these different cultures, and you're working alongside these people, and they're your coworkers, and they're people who, they're your roommates, they're your coworkers. You know, that's the surgeon that's doing the operation on your patient that they're bringing to you. And not to mention the patients themselves, who are locals from whatever country that we're in, that are literally traveling to the port to come on board and also live on board with us while they're having their procedures. And then, of course, the locals, most of them don't speak English. So then you include the day crew, which is locals that speak English that the ship hires so that we have translators. Because, I mean, God forbid you have to try to use Google Translate to speak in Malagasy and explain, you know, like an operation that this person in Madagascar is about to go under for, you know, like.
I was literally about to be like, things Google Translate should never be used for.
For
operations.
Sure. Operations, yeah.
Any medical procedures.
Right?
Yeah. Let's just knock those all off the list. Oh, that's incredible.
In worst case scenario, we had to do that. We had to do that a couple times in Syria, I will say, with their Arabic. But occasionally I was like, this is so subpar. This should not be happening. We are desperate times call for desperate measures. But part of me was like, what does this person think that we're trying to say? What is happening right now? So.
Did you cut in the right place or remove
yes,
the right? Okay,
exactly.
Good.
Oh,
yeah. Just making sure.
Yes.
So then what does that transition look like to go from being on a ship? So how long did you do that again?
I was on the ship for 8 months.
Okay. So 8 months, and then you transition home, and obviously you kind of go from, I'm assuming you walked through a lot of trauma in terms of medical care around you. And then you went home to kind of a personal trauma in a lot of ways, because this is when your father passed, correct?
Yeah. I would say Mercy Ships was, by and large, an incredibly positive experience. And there's sad cases, but by and large, it was a very encouraging and uplifting season. So in that sense, you know, it obviously, if talking with people about culture shock and things like that, and being gone, that was the longest time that I'd been another, and that culture shock aspect that everyone sort of asks about, that's always a little bit different. I think each time you go, I feel like the culture shock is a little bit, it never presents itself the same way twice. There's always different things that sort of tweak at you a little bit. Yeah, going home, and then I just, the absolute blessing of being able to spend a couple months living at home with my dad before he passed was just, I mean, obviously something I didn't know to thank the Lord for before it happened. My sister, when he passed, had just been listening to, she is a podcast fiend. So she'll, I'm sure, already be, you know, looking at all your previous episodes here, but she was just listening to one, and she had heard the term somewhere called severe mercy. And my dad had been diagnosed with onset Parkinson's before he was even 50. So he passed at 58. It was just obviously heartbreaking. We were all very close with my dad, but that phrase just brought a lot of peace to me in that time, just thinking that, you know, he honestly, I love the man dearly, but he was not a good patient. So it was, you know, being able to just think of him and, you know, dancing in heaven and meeting Jesus and walking around without feeling unsteady, and just all of the things that were starting to like really show on and wear him down, just being able to go, well, he's free from that now. And there is so much relief for me in that, and just be that, you know, I can take so much joy in knowing that he's where he always wanted to be.
That's beautiful. At the Mustard Seed Marketplace, they believe that your purchase makes a powerful impact, whether it's providing jobs for overcomers of sex trafficking or supporting small businesses. They want you to be able to shop the causes that you care most about. They're passionate about bringing you on-trend items with a greater purpose. Enjoy shopping their handmade creations from near and far as they create a marketplace for artisans around the globe. They've curated a collection of world-changing jewelry, apparel, handbags, and more for over 40 groups in over 15 countries. And every single item is fair trade, locally made, or give back brands. You can use our code HeyGirl15 for 15% off your entire purchase at themustardseedmarketplace.com. Now, this is a one-time use code. Again, HeyGirl15 for 15% off. Guys, the Mustard Seed Marketplace has so many great options for gift giving. This is the perfect time to start shopping for the holidays. Now, be sure to find them on Facebook and Instagram and check out their website often as they're always getting new pieces. So once again, that's the mustardseedmarketplace.com. Use our code HeyGirl15 for 15% off your entire purchase. And take this holiday to purchase gifts that make an incredible impact to people all around the globe. You walked from all of this and you mentioned having a dream.
Yeah.
So I want to know the dream. Was this just like you dreamt yourself in Syria or in the Middle East and knew like, or was it like something appeared to you in the dream and told you?
No. So the dream was so weird because I am not a political person. And I feel like it's silly to say that in the sense of, I think everyone has opinions and stuff. And maybe people who say they aren't political, maybe they should be political. I don't know. Politics confuses the crap out of me. I'll just say that. And so I had a dream about a presidential election. Yeah, it was right before Trump got elected. And so I had a dream about the presidential election. And obviously refugees were a huge talking point before the election. And I had this dream about Syrian refugees trying to come to America and being turned away. And I have never really had one of those like sit bolt upright in bed experiences, except for this time when that's the extent of the dream that I remember. Except that after I had this dream where Syrian refugees were getting turned away, I sat bolt upright and was like, if they can't come to me, I'm going to go to them. I'll go to Syria. And I journaled about it. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I just grabbed my journal and I wrote it down. And so I think I maybe told a handful of people, but it just sort of deeply settled in me. Like, okay, I guess my next assignment is the Middle East. Yeah, I just sort of sat with that for a long time and was trying to look into all these opportunities, and all of these doors kept closing until finally the nonprofit that I went with, I got connected to them through Instagram, actually. It was just crazy because by that point it had been almost over about 2 years exactly. And I had forgotten exactly what I'd written in my journal. And so when I found them on Instagram and my friend encouraged me to apply, she's like, I think they need nurses. And, you've been talking about the Middle East for so long. And I clicked on the website, I applied, and then I talked with my friend about it. And she was like, Kayla, this is going to happen. Like, this was your dream, was Syria. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is why great friends are so important, because literally I had forgotten that I wrote down that I was going to go to Syria. And I'd been applying for all of these other countries in the Middle East, just being like, well, surely God didn't mean Syria because Syria is not open right now. So surely, any other country in the Middle East will do. Anyways, I just had to shake my head and I was like, thank you for reminding me of the dream that God gave me that I had promptly forgotten about. And he meant it. I went to Syria. So
I think that's such a good reminder for all of us too, from the moment that God laid it on your heart to actually, what you said, messaging this group, like 2 years. It's not like God laid it on my heart and next week I was on a plane and off we go like that.
Right.
that God's timing.
Long enough that I had forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah. But what a cool thing that God had not, for some reason, like the story of David keeps coming to mind, because when they first said David is going to be king, we forget that there was this huge stretch of time before any of that actually came to be. And in a world, in a culture that is so instant gratification, give me now.
Right.
What an awesome story and testimony of God, God working in his timing and how beautiful and perfect that is, and leading you to an impossible, like you said, Syria is closed. I obviously can't go there. And God's like, well, actually, that's exactly where you're going.
Right.
So I know there's probably lots to it, but in terms of working over in the Middle East, what are some things that just for you feel like God really showed you in your time in Syria serving there?
It is probably the single most life-changing experience for me to date. And so, there's definitely a lot that I could say, but I think initially, even what you said of just even the getting us in there, even just the logistics of how he made it work. The nonprofit that I went with partnered with the defense, and they are the ones that sort of literally opened the door in the fence between Israel and Syria for us to walk through. And it was this partnership between my nonprofit, which is the Christian organization, Jewish Israeli Defense Force, military, and then this Muslim army on the other side that literally took us into their town and housed us and protected us and cared for us while we lived there. And it was this triangle of 3 different religions, it wasn't all Americans on my team. There was people from Germany and New Zealand and all of these people, a much smaller team, but people from all over the world, but Christians and Jews, and Muslims all working together. And the team had already been present there for, I think, a little less than a year when I joined them. And so when it started, everyone said, a week? Maybe this will last a week. And it lasted about, I think, 13 months before we were evacuated.
Wow.
And we were there to build a clinic and to take care of as many people as we could. And I think so in that sense, I think, like you said already, just sort of highlighting the logistics of when you look at something and you're saying, absolutely not, this is impossible. The Lord's just like, oh, ye of little faith, come on, haven't you learned yet that I can do anything I want? And I want you guys in Syria, and I want you to work. I want there to be this partnership between these 3 organizations that should never be friends. Seeing even the trickling out of people, these are people, even between the Israelis and the Muslims on the other side, they fought, and they're fighting over that land there. And there's all this turmoil between these 2 religions and these 2 people groups. And to be seeing the way that changed even within the town. And obviously we don't have to get into Israel and Zionism and all this kind of stuff, but the Jewish people being one of probably the most hated people groups of all time, and seeing Muslims in this town who have grown up being taught to hate their Jewish neighbors. After introducing us, it wasn't even us. They were starting to say the IDF are people who they would take people back to Israel. When we had trauma patients, we would send them to hospitals in Israel to get care and then get them back over the border. And so they literally called it. It was it was top secret for a while. It's all open now, but they called it the Good Neighbor Project. Mm-hmm. And so Israel was being a good neighbor and watching the way that sort of filtered through the town and literally changed perspectives of all of this hate that people had carried for years that maybe wasn't their hate to start with, and that they just grown up with, and seeing sort of those biases change. and even just even on a grander scale of what I was able to witness personally, I mean, I got to see that, and that was super cool. But even 100% very small Muslim town, seeing hearts soften to Jesus. We had 2 guards that lived with us full time. They would rotate 24-hour shifts, and they were part of the same family. They were cousins. One of them was very staunchly religious, and the other one sort of in between. He was Muslim and he would pray, but he didn't want to fight you on all the issues in between. Watching them start out when the team arrived, even before I got there, saying, "It's really nice that you Christians have come to help us, but we hope you know, like, at the end of time, our book says that we're going to kill you. Like, we'll have to kill you because you're infidels." And that, by the time we were evacuated, one of our guards knew, I would say he knew all of the words to "Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord," in English, because we would have prayer and worship and church services, and he would sit in on them, and he started praying over his meals. We would go to his house to eat dinner with his family, and he would pray, and he would start prayer in English saying, "Dear Father," and he would start singing, and he would be singing "Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord" in English, and he would just be walking around. Nobody else is singing with him. It was just stuck in his head, and he knew the words. And seeing this man, just seeing the way that his heart melted after exposure to Jesus in that way, which, I mean, obviously you hope that you're carrying Jesus well, and seeing the way that regardless of your flaws, the way that he can just shine through and take opportunity like that, it was just, yeah, I could keep talking, but I'll stop. It was beautiful. Yeah.
I literally have goosebumps just like picturing, just picturing this whole story. Even just that imagery you gave of them literally opening a door between 2 countries. Like, I feel like you're describing a scene in a movie. Like
It felt like a scene in a movie.
Yeah, like this, and just how the imagery of what God, when it is God, I think of, when scripture talks about, if it's of God, or if it's not of God, then it's going to fall apart anyways. But if it's of God, then nothing's going to stop it. Kind of. And that was like you getting to stand out there and cross into this, I'm putting quotations. I know they can't hear that, but like closed doors, and God not only opening them, but like, all of it, like the fact that it was this people group, like Muslims opening the door, inviting Christians in, and the opportunity. It's just, the whole thing is like, I totally have goosebumps. I think it's incredible. And to me, that's I think sometimes in our race, when we're just willing to step, like if God opens a door, because the truth is you had to step through the door. You had to step in. And I love your description of them. Like, you had to choose to stay when they're literally telling you, like, in the end, we have to kill you, because that's how the book goes. Like, and you're like, all right, worship service. Like,
let's pray about
that. So just choosing to keep walking and just watch what God does is incredible. So I'm like you, goodness, I could go on with that. But Kayla, I would love to know, because obviously you mentioned it in your story, you just had this huge shift, right? Selling candles. Yeah. What led to the transition? Let's start there. Like, what do you feel like has led to this change in assignment, I guess, for lack of a better description?
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this earlier, and part of me was almost like, what a horrible time to record this podcast, because, like, we're talking about how you're running the race. And I'm like, I have so many questions about how I'm supposed to be running this race right now. I will say that I don't know if you do the Enneagram at all. And so I'm an Enneagram 4, and I just feel all of the feels, and I think that I realized I was hitting a pretty big wall of burnout. I don't even think I said I've been working in an ER. When I've been in the States, I've been working as an ER nurse for about I think a total of about 5 years now. I never saw myself as an ER nurse. I don't feel like your typical ER nurse. And I had so many people when I started say like, oh, you're too nice. You're going to have to grow a backbone. Like you're going to get eaten alive. And I was like, oh, cool. Thanks for the encouragement. That's great. But it's been obviously something that the Lord has used, that my time in these, what on my resume, made me able to go and do what he sent me abroad to go and do. And so I'm grateful for it, but it also has definitely worn me down. For a time, I think being around people who work in emergency medicine, there's sort of like, what you're getting into, sort of a suck it up mentality, just because that's a powerful defense mechanism. And it's sometimes what you have to do. But I just started realizing that it was affecting me more deeply, I think, than I realized. And I felt like I was feeling like shifts in myself, that I was like, I'm feeling uncomfortable with the direction that this is going. And I want to sort of take my foot off the gas before I crash. Yeah. I had sort of been looking for a little while. And like I said, some friends, it was actually friends of friends, and, people just sort of mentioning this candle company out of the blue. And I started following. Instagram has really, as much as I hate social media, Instagram has like really created some job opportunities. I found out about the job opportunity at the candle shop because they posted on Instagram. So I feel like my season right now, to sum it up this way, I've sort of been questioning, like, okay, coming back from all the stuff over the last couple of years have been a whirlwind, and coming back from that, what is my season right now supposed to look like? And the one word that I've heard over and over again from the Lord is just health. Like, I'm supposed to focus on health, be it physical health, my emotional health, my financial health, my spiritual health, all of the ways that you can be healthy. And so I came here and I plugged in, and I got a counselor, and I started budgeting, and I, started trying to work out more, and, just all of the things, just to create some healthy habits to make it a little easier to like be ready for whatever he calls me to next. I just felt like I had some reassessing to do in my personal life.
I know that you are saying that it feels like the worst time ever to record this, but I actually am so grateful, one, that you didn't bow out of recording during this time, because I think what you're speaking to speaks to a lot of people where they're at right now.
Yeah.
And I say that even personally, in terms of, I'm kind of similarly in the sense of, I've been in this sort of resetting health in my own life. Like, what does that look like? I'm a firm believer that God, has created us as holistic beings, meaning that we're mind, body, spirit. Like, it's not, if you do your quiet time 7 hours a day, but just eat junk food and never exercise, then you're still going to have a problem. And so I just think it's such a cool for you to sit here now and be like, hey, this space, like my race right now is that I need to care for myself and get healthy, because I don't even know what God has next. Like, here's where I came from and here. And I just feel like listeners there's so many that can resonate more with that than even the surety of like, okay, this is the thing.
Right. For sure.
And I also just think it's a beautiful thing to know that there are things we can do even when we don't know. Like, when we don't know what God is doing, there are things that we can do to just press into him and be like, God, when you're ready, I want to be ready. Like, so
yes.
I also think you should write you should write a thank you note to Instagram, because I
probably should. Probably should. They've done a lot for me over the years.
Yeah, for real. No, yeah, we definitely need to make that happen.
Yeah, I can send them a candle too. It's great.
I would love, as we kind of get ready to wrap this up, Girl, if you were talking to somebody who maybe they're just resonating with you, I'm going to rewind it back to they're at a place in their life where whatever they're doing. So you were in nursing. It doesn't necessarily have to be nursing, but their job, their career, whatever, that they're starting to sense that you called it a shift. Like, okay, I don't really know if this is the healthiest place for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about, we talked about calling versus assignment. Maybe God's even tugging on their heart in this moment of, hey, I know that you've kind of imagined that this is your thing forever, but this is me stirring. What would you say to that listener who's just starting to kind of feel that tug, or any wisdom that you would give them in terms of how to respond?
Well, first of all, I would just say, yeah, the struggle is real. I mean, the feeling, I feel like I have it easy as a single woman and not necessarily having my decisions affect anybody else. Like, I feel grateful in that regard that I've sort of been able to get up and go, because I know that, talking with people who have families and things like that, like, there are so many parameters in place for me that may not apply to other people. So I want to say this and not just saying like, prepare to get up and go wherever, whenever the Lord says it, drop everything, because kids are real. I'm with children with my sister now. So I live with my niece and nephew. I've never lived with kids full time before. I am learning so many lessons. Let me just tell you, it is preparation that I did not know I needed. So I guess I would just say to lean into it in the best way that you can, and to do that to hold it as loosely as you can, because obviously we're going to have this reaction of like, well, that's scary, I'm going to hold on to it again. But just knowing that the logistics, I think so many times can be what catches us up. It's not that we're scared of well, it might be fear, but stepping out of our comfort zone can be fun and exhilarating and exciting. But you just look at all the logistics and you're like, that would be really cool, but it's never going to happen. I have found for me that the greatest times and moments in my walk with Jesus have been when I've just sort of let go of the reins and been like, you're going to make it happen, and I just want to go along for the ride. And so whatever that looks like for you, to just lean into it. I feel like it maybe sounds a little bit more flippant than I want it to, because it's not easy, but when you can do it, and when you can do it well and just go with it, it'll just blow your mind, just on the regular, every day, just the way that he can work and sustain you and teach you things that you didn't even know that you needed to learn. It's just, you're in for a wild ride. And I feel like that's what he promised. Like, you always hear people say, don't expect safety in being a Christian. I feel like that's where people stop. And it's like, but what can we expect? And it might be challenging, but like, it's going to knock your freaking socks off. Like, it's just the stuff that he's going to do, and the doors that he's going to open, and the lessons that you'll learn when you can just step out in faith and release. Let's be real, we don't have any control. Release the control that you think you have. It's the most beautiful way to live your life, no matter what you're doing.
Girl, I love it. You can drop the mic, be like, peace out. Okay, so then Kayla, if people want to get in touch with you or connect with you, what is the best place for them to do that? I know you said you hate social media, but clearly you have Instagram, or Instagram has you.
Yeah. It was maybe a bit aggressive for me to say that I hate social media, because I do love Instagram, but Instagram would probably be the easiest place. I am on there, and I'm cool if you want to, share my handle, or I don't know. Is that like a thing the cool kids are doing these days? I don't know.
Yeah. What's your handle?
Yeah. What's your handle? But I say that, and then it's so funny. I don't even have my name on Instagram. Like, people can't find me by my name. So that's maybe a misleading thing to say. How rude of me.
Yeah. What should they search to find you on Instagram?
Okay. Well, if you want to find me, my username is Kayka J. Kayka Jay. Kayka J.
Kayka J. I
My
love
old nickname. Yeah.
I love that. For some reason that saying that early, it made me feel like, hey, you got a MySpace? Are you old enough to remember the MySpace days?
Oh, I had MySpace. I for sure had MySpace.
Yes.
Yes.
I had that.
I honestly wish that I could remember what my name was, and I don't. But what was yours? I feel like you were about to tell it, and now you have to.
No, I honestly don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I can't I just think I always imagine that as being like the creeper voice, like, hey, you got a MySpace? Like, it's just scary. I don't know.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm not cool. I don't know the terms. It's fine.
I just asked what the cool kids are doing. So I think I'm far beyond, like, I'm past 30 now. Like, I think, and it's all downhill from here. Instagram is all I can handle. Maybe that's what it is. It's not even that I hate social media.
Well, Kayla, you are a cool kid in my book, just so you know. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to come on and cannot wait to share your story with our listeners. So thank you.